Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. First up for D&D today, we have the I Can Fix It mug that has the tape measure that goes the wrong direction. Again, I don't know who designed this, but they did a terrible job. And inside of it, we have, again, some more of the elderberry and lemon balm immune and stress tea. This is really good, and so I just thought I wanted some more of it. That's the reason that we got it today. Nothing more complicated than that at all. So, moving on to what we are actually talking about today. It's Third Party Thursday, everybody's favorite day of the week, which means we are talking about a really awesome third-party book. And today, we are talking about the Game Master's Book of Traps, Puzzles, and Dungeons. This is one of many series of the Game Master's series, it is just as good as the other ones, I think. If you are a fan of the other ones, you're going to like what you find in this book. I really like it. I hope you do too. We're going to go ahead and we're going to crack it open, and we're going to take a look at exactly what it is that is inside of it, because I think it's got some really, really great stuff in there. Often enough, traps, puzzles, that kind of thing are the thing that I get stuck on most easily when I'm doing some prep for some of my games, because I never really know how difficult to make something. I never know how complicated to make something. I genuinely have on more than one occasion Googled the like riddles for fourth graders type of thing, that joke that is on the internet that more of us actually do than maybe we should. And so this book actually provides you with some examples that you don't have to run to the internet and and accidentally demean your players by looking up. But let's go ahead and let's crack this open and let's take a look at it. We're going to start at the beginning, and we're just going to go ahead and run through the table of contents to take a look at what is inside of this book here. If you are familiar with this type of book, you are going to be relatively familiar with the way that it is laid out, just because they all follow a similar kind of formula. But in the order that they are presented in, we have the foreword, then the introduction, then we have a trio of one-shot adventures, short little one-shots, which are always good to have. Then we move on to traps and all of their subsets, puzzles and all of their subsets. Then we go to dungeon chambers, where we have a collection of 50 different chambers that you can use as part of dungeons. And then, of course, down to random selectors, those random tables that are in the back of these books that make them really, really fantastic and really useful for putting something together on the fly if you're really not sure, but you need to come up with something for your party to interact with. So, we are not going to go ahead and get into the one-shots. That's not the point of this book. They are decent little one-shots. Published one-shots are always not my favorite, but I enjoy them well enough. Usually, if I'm running a one-shot, I have an idea for what I want to do anyway. But if you were looking for a pick-up-and-play, these are good pick-up-and-play ones, and they do focus more on the puzzle and trap aspect, as opposed to like the sort of more traditional one-shot of, meet, go do the thing, fight a thing, and be done with the thing. So they are cool. They definitely are, and I do recommend having them in your repertoire, just if you happen to get this book, because again, it's always good to have more resources just kind of in your arsenal for your crazy players that decide to do crazy things all the time. But jumping forward to the traps section, because that's where this book really starts to take off. There are 4 sections of traps that they have listed in here. There are painful traps, deadly traps, disruptive traps, and complex traps. We're going to look at one of each of those to give you sort of a feel for what each of those actually means. Painful traps are traps that are designed to hurt rather than destroy your party. Still, some of them work too well. Deadly traps are exactly what they seem to be. They are deadly traps. Disruptive traps are designed to slow them down by sending them somewhere else, and complex traps are exactly as they sound, complex traps, ones that really take some serious effort to get through. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the painful traps with one that they have dubbed the bee's knees. So one of the really great things about these books in general is the way that they have all the information broken down inside of them. They have a bunch of different individual pieces in here that really sort of help you get your head around exactly what it is that you are going to actually be throwing at your players with each of the individual puzzles. So with this one, for the traps, or for the painful trap, the bee's knees. They have trigger and flavor, the result, investigation, and disarming of the trap. Trigger and flavor for this one is that they are stone tiles that give way underneath you, and when you step on them, they drop you about 3 feet into a series of wasp nest. Stepping off of the trigger plate drops more stinging insects from above you. The result: the creature that triggers the trap suffers 12d4 piercing damage immediately and must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution save. Failed save, they are poisoned and begin to swell from multiple wasp stings. Triggering this trap by stepping on the nest releases 3 wasp swarms into the corridor that this trap is located in. This one is designed to be put in a hallway. The creature that triggered this trap is also standing on a pressure plate. When they move 5 or more feet at the GM's discretion, 4d4 beehives drop out of trapdoors in the ceiling, each delivering a swarm of bees. That will menace the creature, any creature in range. There we go. You can essentially decide however many you want to have in the hallway for this, up to you as the GM, and they will attack until they are at half health, or at which point they will start to flee. Any creature other than those that have stepped through the wasp nest that has been successfully attacked by the swarm of wasps and or bees 3 times must succeed on a DC 16 con save or become poisoned and their body begins to swell. Investigating the floor on a DC 16 investigation check, you would notice that some of these stones feel a little flimsy, and a closer inspection would reveal that they are drop pits for wasp nests. Creature with a passive perception of 20 would more than likely notice a low buzzing emanating from the floor and ceiling of the corridor. Disarming the trap can't be disarmed. The way to get around it is to just get around them. Do not step on them. Make your way around them. So it's not a great example for the disarming part of it, but it does say, well, you can't disarm it because it's a series of live animals. So that is at least useful to show that they do have the option of disarming or not in several of these. But obviously, 12d4 is a decent number of damage, so that is, you're looking at more of a like 8th level-ish party for something like this, or higher maybe. But it is not something that is designed to kill. Swarms of wasps and bees do not have particularly insane stat blocks, and you can work your way out of them pretty quickly. So that is your painful trap from this book from me. It's just an example, just to sort of show you this is the kind of thing that you're working with. Moving forward to the deadly traps, we have one called A New Hat, which this one is one that actually has art that is associated with it. If you are watching, it is right here. And based on that picture, you might be able to tell exactly kind of what we're getting into. The trigger and flavor for this one, again, we're in deadly traps now, is that a creature opening this door causes a shelf holding a pot of molten iron above the door jamb to tip, dropping the pot on their head. Result: they have to succeed on a DC 16 dex save or take 12d6 fire and 3d6 bludgeoning damage as hot coals and liquid iron drop directly under their head and shoulders. Cauldron can be removed with a successful DC 14 athletics check. If it's not removed within a minute, the iron begins to seize and harden, securing the cauldron to the creature's head indefinitely, which can be removed by a top-tier blacksmith, greater restoration, or similar spell, or by a different means at the GM's discretion. Investigation. DC 16 investigation check reveals a small set of steel plates set into the frame that would trip this, and disarming it, it cannot be disarmed, but a creature that suspects the door is trapped could avoid it by opening the door from a safe distance and waiting 6 seconds before walking through, at which point the cauldron would have clattered onto the floor. Gives you a good example of exactly what this one is. This one has a much more dire result if you do not succeed on your dex save or avoid the trap in some other capacity. If this thing falls on you and it begins to harden, I as the GM would begin to rule that you are suffocating now, and you will die very quickly if that is the case. So again, deadly traps come with higher stakes for failing as opposed to just having damage done to you. This one clearly hurts a lot and then will promptly kill you if you are not careful. So shifting forward from there, the disruptive traps. These are kind of weird. These are very, very weird, actually. Very much something that is not your traditional sort of trap. The one we're going to take a look at is Unfree Gold. Trigger and flavor. Grabbing a piece of gold off of the floor reveals it to be a powerful, stunning trap that locks the triggering creature in place until they start to crack into gold pieces. Oh. So, effectively, with this one, there is a pile of gold. You pick up one of those pieces of gold, and when you do so, you have to succeed on a DC 17 Wisdom save or become stunned for a minute. If you fail that saving throw, you can attempt it again at the end of the minute. On a success at that point, you are freed, but you watch as the gold in the pile that is there turns into worthless pyrite. On a failed save, the creature's skin starts to glow, radiating with gold luminescence, and they're stunned for an hour. At the end of that hour, and every subsequent hour that they remain stunned, they can attempt the saving throw again. On a success, you're freed, but you no longer value gold. On a failure, you are stunned, and you begin to turn into gold coins, taking 8d8 necrotic damage every single hour until your stunned body wastes away. An investigation using Detect Magic could reveal something off, maybe cursed, about that pile of gold, and disarming it would require the Remove Curse spell or something else at the GM's discretion. So this is one that is not going to outright kill you. In fact, you don't take damage from it until you fail the saving throw a couple of times. However, it's really going to mess up your day as you sit there and you try and get your friend to stop being stunned because they are slowly turning into gold pieces. Just really sort of odd, really actually very fun. So your Disruptive Traps are going to be in that realm more than anything else. They are the ones that are going to really, really just sort of take you down a weird winding side path all of a sudden without any kind of warning. And now, Complex Traps. This one is the most involved by a long shot, not of all of the Complex Traps, but of the ones we're talking about. Just because it is what it is. It is a several step trap. It takes up this entire page over here. That is a full D&D book size page with no images on it. So hang with me as we sort of walk through this one here. The Ossuary of Unkindness. It's a complex trap. This one is labeled specifically level 10 to 15 and a deadly threat. The trigger and flavor for this one. It activates as soon as a corporeal creature lifts the uppermost lid of this altar that it is set up within, which requires a successful DC 17 athletics check, which must be repeated on each round in initiative. Trap remains active as long as the upper lid is raised. It then actually acts on 2 different initiative counts. So if this one is triggered, you go ahead and you start the initiative counter. On initiative counts of 20 and 10, it has something that happens. It has 2 different active elements in it. The first of the active elements is the Crystal of Consciousness that acts on initiative 20, and the second is the Flock of Shadows, which acts on initiative 10. The Crystal of Consciousness targets any creature within 100 feet of the ossuary. That creature must succeed on a DC 25 Charisma saving throw. On a failed save, their soul is siphoned to the crystal that is within the ossuary, as in the Magic Jar spell. Their soul is swapped with that of a deceased creature that is kept within the ossuary. That creature then uses the character's body to act in the interest of the deity that is worshipped at the ossuary. On its own initiative, protecting the ossuary from intruders. That's important. This is why, you need to try not to open this thing, because suddenly things will keep it open. The crystal can only hold 1 soul at a time. It targets a creature within 30 feet of the ossuary. Each creature must succeed on a DC 17 intelligence save against the crystal's memory siphon. On a failed save, it takes 4d6 psychic damage, and their most cherished memory is ripped away and transferred into the crystal. Then their Flock of Shadows. Moving on down the list here. An unkindness of shadowy spectral ravens erupts from within the ossuary's hidden chamber, obscuring the area within the 30 feet of the ossuary in magical darkness. Flock of Shadows attacks each creature within 30 feet of the ossuary with a +6 bonus to the attack roll, made at advantage provided there are no magical light sources illuminating the target, and dealing 2d6 +3 necrotic damage. On a hit, the strength score of the target is reduced by a d4. If it is reduced to 0, the target dies. Otherwise, the reduction lasts until the target finishes a rest of any kind. A corporeal creature that ends its turn within the Flock of Shadows suffers 46 cold damage. So, this thing, you may have noticed something in there. It has the same effect as a shadow, and I love the shadow as a monster. Part of the reason I'm talking about this one. So, something else that is very deadly in this very simple, straightforward, essentially dungeon room trap kind of area. The dynamic elements. Crystal consciousness becomes more dangerous the longer the trap remains alive. Memory siphon. The memory siphon, the thing that I talked about there, adds an additional d6 of psychic damage for each subsequent failure against the memory save. And ages. 1d6 plus 10 years, or times 10 years, as his life force is siphoned into the crystal alongside his past experiences. You have to get a greater restoration within 24 hours of having this happen to you for you to regain any of that stuff that is going on. Big, big deal. Constant elements are the crystal consciousness and the flock of shadows that we already sort of talked about in there. But they are also the active ones. Disarming it, there's a lot of different things you have to do here to disarm this one. This also bleeds over onto the next page, just as reference. So, to disarm the crystal of consciousness, you have to, first off, get into the second chamber, and then with a successful DC 17 investigation check, you have to destroy the crystal that has an AC of 10 and 50 hit points. It can be dispelled with 3 successful castings of Dispel Magic, and if it is successfully dispelled, the soul within it is free, provided that body is still alive. And the memories, and all of the memories are then returned to those who they have them siphoned off of. If it is physically destroyed but not dispelled, Trap Soul is free to return to its body, but the memories of the crystal remain collected within the shattered shards. So you have to dispel it if you want to get everything back from it. The Flock of Shadows disperses in areas impacted by magical lights. The Shadow Ravens attack at disadvantage and can no longer drain the strength. Of a target that is magically illuminated. A successful casting of Dispel Magic permanently protects the area with a radius of 10 feet from the Flock of Shadows. So that is overall how you deal with that very, very complicated, very, very intense trap. I know that we have been going long here, but we're going to keep rolling real quick here. The puzzles, the rhymes and the riddles, the ciphers, and the gateway puzzles, these are all a little bit more straightforward. Rhymes and riddles are exactly what it sounds like. There is a large collection of rhymes and riddles here. And if you are wondering what I mean they are literally just rhymes and riddles. So, good example. Though my size is quite immense, I'm light as a feather because I am not dense. The answer is a cloud. And then it gives you a potential scenario for why that might be something that comes up. In this case, a cloistered prince offers a prize of 500 gold pieces to the first person who solves the riddle by bringing an example of the answer to him in a small trunk. So you have to bring him a small cloud. Just a really, really cool sort of like, what is this, 6, 7, 8 pages, something like that, of actually genuinely very useful content there, because finding riddles is often just a real pain, especially to find ones that people don't know that are not exceedingly complicated. The ciphers. This one is for your puzzle seekers in your group. These are the ones that are the people who do all of the games in the crossword puzzle every single week. They are very intense, and I only recommend them if your party is really, really into that, because mine would not be able to deal with it, I don't think. And so it just is one of those things that, like, you got to feel it out with your party. Another one of those is the gateway puzzles here. They have a lot of very complicated elements to them, oftentimes involving some kind of a cipher or trying to decode something in some way. And so if that is something your party is interested in, then make sure you go ahead and throw this at them. I'm not going to explain them because, again, there's a lot of like hyper specifics on here that involve a lot of these little like subtext boxes and a lot of the writing that is on this page that like the complicated writing that I can't actually speak because they're just symbols. But they are very cool, and I do recommend reading them even if you don't end up getting to use them in your game, because really they are very, very good. And then the dungeon chambers. This is a sort of return to a lot of the things that we are very much used to in these books. It gives you a good chamber and a good series of things, including, but not limited to, some suggestions for how this room is trapped, how they can be used to implement, there we go, some of these puzzles. So some of these are really, really cool. And by some, I mean really most of them are honestly very, very cool. But they are all situational, and they require you to kind of flip through them to see which one you might want to be getting into, but it really does fill that niche that a lot of times you do kind of just need to get into sometimes with your D&D games. So that is a quick overview of the Traps, Puzzles, and Dungeons book, the Game Masters Book of Traps, Puzzles, and Dungeons. Excuse me. These books as a whole, I think, are really cool, and so I do recommend checking them out, even just to like peruse real quick. They sell them at a lot of bookstores. Just go and flip through it and see if it's something you might like. I have found a lot of use for all of mine because they do come with so many pre-planned elements that you can steal from, and so they really do just make really, really useful planning tools for your arsenal, especially because so many of them access things that are not necessarily in like the 40 best riddles for 4th graders websites or anything like that. So I do recommend checking this out because it is a really fun book and a really, really cool resource to have. So that is that. Moving on to the shows that we have today, in no particular order here. It is Thursday, which means it's the last Thursday, so we don't have Critical Role, but we do have Authors and Dragons, NADPOD, and LGBT D&D. Check them out. Let them know that I sent you, because again, someday somebody's going to say something about Someday somebody's going to say something to me about it, and I'm going to think that it is funny. But until then, I'm going to keep asking you guys to do so. Man, I really stumbled over that one. My tongue just stopped making all of the words happen. But that is everything I have to talk to you guys about today. So thank you so very much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're interested in becoming a patron, check out the link in the episode description. Yep, that is all of it. So with all that said, everybody, don't forget, drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.